Hello, my dear students. Welcome you all to Sri Jain Rank Zone classes. I'm your mentor and your friend for the subject biology, and I will be taking the zoology part, that is animal science. My dear students, we were in the continuation of amino acids and proteins. So today we are likely to start with the classification. We have already started with the classification of proteins in the previous lecture, previous slides. Okay. So you can go through the previous slides so that you can have a gist of that how proteins are classified. The proteins are basically classified on the basis of shape, on the basis of function, on the basis of constitution. Okay. So on the basis of shape, they are classified as fibrous proteins, globular proteins. Okay. And the major types are the simple, compound, and derived. The simple proteins, they are further classified into fibrous and globular on the basis of shape. We have already done it. Then classification based on function. So this is the classification based on function. Okay. Depending upon the function, proteins are classified into enzymatic and non-enzymatic types, either enzymatic or non-enzymatic. The non-enzymatic types, it includes structural proteins, storage proteins, protective proteins, hormonal proteins, transport proteins. These are enzymatic proteins and they are non-enzymatic parts. Okay. So enzymatic proteins. These are the proteins which function as enzymes. Proteins which function as enzymes. Okay. Example, amylase, pepsin, or they are in conjugation with a non-protein part called cofactor, or they are in conjugation with a non-protein part known as cofactor. Okay, so cofactor is the you can say non-enzymatic part or the non-protein part which is present in the enzyme. Not non-enzymatic, is the non-protein part is cofactor. Okay, for example, dehydrogenase enzyme. For example, dehydrogenase. Okay, enzymatic proteins, they are globular in shape. Globular in shape. Then structural proteins. Structural proteins or protoplasmic proteins, also known as protoplasmic proteins. They form part of cellular structures and their products. Okay, they form part of, they are constituent of either cellular structures or the product of cellular structures. Form cellular structures or products. Okay, example, colloidal complex of protoplasm. Colloidal complex of protoplasm. Cell membranes. Contractile proteins. Structural proteins of hair and nails. Of hair and nails. So these are structural or protoplasmic proteins. Okay. They mainly help to frame the cellular structures or their products like structural proteins of hair and nails, contractile proteins, cell membranes. Now, the reserve or storage proteins, they occur in food reserve, mostly in seeds. Okay, eggs, or milk. When they help to store food, okay, they are globular in shape. So enzymatic proteins and reservoir storage proteins, they are globular in shape, and structural proteins, they are fibrous in shape. Okay, they are usually fibrous in shape. Okay, maximally their chances of fibrous in shape are there. Okay, depending upon their solubility upon their solubility, reserve proteins are of four types. There are four types: albumins, globulins, prolamines, and glutelins. Glutelins, they are responsible for elasticity of wheat. Okay. Now, albumin, it maintains the blood colloidal osmotic pressure. You can see blood, which helps in the process of making of urine, blood colloidal osmotic pressure. In milk, it is present in the form of lactoalbumin. In egg yolk, it is present in the form of ova-albumin, and in blood serum albumin. Okay. Then prolamine, it is present in store as a store protein in cereal grains like zea maize, in zine in the form of maize, hordoin in the form of barley, and gluten in the form of wheat. Understood? So albumins, globulins, prolamines, and glutelins. Understood? Now, conjugate proteins, on the basis of constitution, proteins are classified into three categories. We have discussed the simple proteins. Now we are going to discuss the conjugate proteins, and after that, there is a third category of derived proteins. So, simple proteins, conjugated proteins, and the third category is derived proteins. Okay. Conjugated proteins, they are further classified as nucleoproteins, chromoproteins, lipoproteins, flavoproteins, metalloproteins, glycoproteins, and phosphoproteins. So conjugated proteins, they are further classified based on a non-amino prosthetic group. So they have a non-amino prosthetic group. So there are two things. See, one is cofactor and the other one is the prosthetic group. Cofactor is what? It is a non-protein part in an enzyme. The non-proteinaceous part in an enzyme is a cofactor. And a non-amino group is known as what? Prosthetic group. Okay, understood? So the type of prosthetic group, conjugate proteins are of several types. Nucleoproteins. In nucleoproteins, the prosthetic group is DNA or RNA. In chromoproteins, the prosthetic group can be different types of pigment. Metalloproteins, it can be different types of metals. Glycoproteins, it can be carbohydrates. Mucoproteins, it can be different types of mucoid substances. Compound proteins. The compound of conjugated proteins, they have a protein part made up of amino acid and a non-protein part which is non-amino acid part. Okay, I mean they have a non-protein part which is non-amino acid. Types. The types of compound protein on the basis of prosthetic group are as follows. Nucleoprotein. The prosthetic group is nucleic acid. Okay, they have prosthetic group which is a nucleic acid, that is DNA or RNA. Chromosome is equal to DNA plus RNA plus protein. Okay. Ribosome is equal to rRNA, ribosomal RNA plus protein. So chromosome is equal to DNA plus RNA plus protein, and ribosome is equivalent to rRNA plus protein. Okay. Virus. Chromoprotein. So virus or chromoprotein is having a prosthetic group. It is having a prosthetic group which is a porphyrin pigment. Porphyrin pigment means it is a metalloprotein. So chromoprotein is having a prosthetic group which is a porphyrin pigment. Okay, having metal linked to it, having metal. Okay, which is metal plus porphyrin ring. Example, metal color. Okay, hemoglobin, iron red. Cytochrome, iron. It is also having iron, which is also red. Chlorophyll is having magnesium, which is green. Hemocyanin, which is having copper, which is blue. Okay, so you can see that the chromoproteins, they have prosthetic group which is a porphyrin pigment. Please remember, which is a porphyrin pigment. Okay, metal plus porphyrin ring. Like metal color hemoglobin, it is having iron and it is red in color. Cytochrome, it is also having iron and it is red in color. Then chlorophyll, it is having magnesium and it is green in color. Hemocyanin, it is having copper and it is blue in color. Understood? So these are different types of chromoproteins. Chroma means color. Chroma means what? Colors. Okay. Now, coming to next, in the classification of conjugated or compound proteins only, we are having a third category, lipoproteins. Lipoproteins, they have a prosthetic group, which is known as what? A prosthetic group is lipid, and they help to frame plasma membrane. They help to frame or make plasma membrane. Lipovitelline membrane on the egg surface of different animals, especially the reptilians, is also having lipoprotein. Lipoprotein is having a prosthetic group which is lipid, which is a lipid. Example, plasma membrane. Okay, example is plasma membrane. Lipovitelline membrane on the egg surface. Phosphoprotein. Phosphoprotein, it is having a phosphoric acid as a prosthetic group, as you can see. they have phosphoric acid as a prosthetic group. Phosphoric acid is H3PO4 molecule. So phosphoric acid as a prosthetic group in phosphoproteins. Example, carcinogen, which is present in milk. Carcinogen, which is present in milk. Then pepsin, which is a protein digesting enzyme. Phosphovitin in egg, and ovovitaline also in case of egg. So phosphovitin and ovovitaline in case of egg, casein, which is a milk protein, and pepsin, which is a protein digesting enzyme. So carcinogen, which is a milk protein and protein digesting enzyme. Okay. So this is about the phosphoprotein. Previously, we have registered lipoproteins. The prosthetic group is lipid. Okay. Chromoproteins we discussed, in which the prosthetic group is a metal porphyrin structure. Now we are going to discuss about lecithoprotein. Lecithoprotein, it is having lecithin or choline as a prosthetic group. Example, fibrinogen in blood. So lecithoprotein it is present in fibrinogen in blood. It is having a phosphatic group which is lecithin. Metalloprotein, which is present with metal as a prosthetic group, enzyme with its cofactor. So cofactor, always remember, it is inorganic or metal. So an enzyme with its cofactor or the metallic substituent is known as what? The metalloprotein. Understood? Next, erythropoietin hormone, glycoprotein. Glycoprotein, prosthetic group is carbohydrate, less than 4% of carbohydrate, like mucin, saliva. Okay? Understood? Then erythropoietin hormone is released by kidney, is an example of glycoprotein. A and B antigen of blood, it is also a glycoprotein. A and B antigen of blood is also a type of glycoprotein. Alpha, beta, and J globulin of blood, it is also a glycoprotein. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, it is also a glycoprotein. Okay. So glycoproteins, they have carbohydrate as a structure present in them. Follicle stimulating hormone FSH and luteinizing hormone LH. So follicle stimulating hormone FSH and luteinizing hormone LH. Understood? They are also glycoproteins. So all are these glycoproteins. Okay, is it clear? The antigen A and B glycoprotein, alpha, beta, J globulins glycoproteins. Okay. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, glycoprotein, luteinizing hormone, LH, also glycoproteins. And now we are going to discuss about the next category. Glycoproteins which are present on the cell surface are helpful in the cell recognition. Already we have done it. Human egg surface plus egg surface secretes fertilizin, which is a glycoprotein. Human egg surface secretes a fertilizin, which is a glycoprotein. Okay. Sperm surface secretes anti-fertilizin, which is a simple protein. So fertilizin, which is secreted by egg surface, is a glycoprotein, while the anti-fertilizin is a simple protein. Mucoprotein is having a prosthetic group carbohydrate more than 4%. More than 4% is mucoprotein, less than 4% is glycoprotein. Mucoids of synovial fluid, osteomucoprotein of bones, tendomucoprotein of tendons, and chondromucoprotein of cartilage. Okay. So is there more than 4%, then it is mucoprotein, less than 4%, then it is the glycoprotein, like mucoids of synovial fluid, okay? Osteomucoprotein of bones, tendomucoprotein of tendons, and chondromucoprotein on in cartilages. So all are basically a category, they belong to conjugated proteins having a prosthetic group. The different prosthetic groups basically make their function different. That is why we are needing to continue with this classification. Okay, understood? Now, now we are going to discuss about derived proteins. What are derived proteins and what are their functions? So derived proteins, they are basically divided into two categories. You can see here they are having two categories. One is the primary form, primary form, which is which is formed by the denaturation of main or structural protein, and then the secondary form is basically which is formed by dilution. So the primary form is basically derived after the main protein. When it gets denatured, then it forms the primary derived protein, and the secondary derived protein comes after the partial digestion. Okay, like fibrin, it forms fibrinogen. Uh, okay, myosin, it forms myosin. Secondary formed by digestion, like protein, digested to form proteoses, then to peptones, then polypeptides, then peptides, and then amino acids. So these are known as what? Derived proteins. Like fibrin gives to fibrinogen, okay, and myosin gives the myosin, okay. I think this example is somewhat you don't have to you don't need, okay, or it is quite confusing. Fibrin gives to fibrinogen, then it's okay. Then secondary form of digestion is protein, proteoses, peptone, polypeptide, and peptides. Okay, all these are what? Derived proteins. Now we are going to discuss about functions of proteins. The functions of proteins, protective structures. They help to make protective structures like fibrous protein, keratin. It forms the protective structure. The first is to make protective structures. Example, keratin. Okay, which helps to make hair, saliva, scales, nails, etc. Okay. Silkworm protect themselves in the cocoon by these fibers, fibrioin, which is a skeletal or protective protein. Spider webs are also built of this protein. Then second comes the defense proteins or immunoglobulins. Or antibodies. Then third, toxins. Okay. Toxins, they are both defensive and offensive proteins. Okay. Then structural proteins. We have already discussed the structural proteins like colloidal complex of protoplasm, cell organelles, cell membranes, all are structural proteins. Proteoglycans, compatibility proteins, compatibility proteins like pollen grains possesses special proteins in their walls for compatibility incompatibility reaction with the sigma during pollination. Okay, then contractile proteins like myosin, actin, these are contractile proteins. Okay, then microtubules like cilia, flagella, basal bodies, centrioles, all constitute proteins, alpha and beta tubulins, alpha comma beta tubulins, P protein present in sieve tube elements. Then the transport or carrier proteins which help to transport like hemoglobin, storage proteins, they occur in milk, egg and seeds like casein, glutenin, ferritin. ठीक है. Proteins which are having all the essential amino acids are called first class proteins. Okay, first class proteins which are having all essential amino acids. And second class proteins, plant proteins, they are incomplete and they are called second class proteins. Okay. Now they help to store, they help as a to make receptors like receptors for cyclic AMP, monophosphate. Then they also help to maintain the pH as a buffer. Okay. Hormones, repressors. Okay. Then blood clotting proteins. There are many functions. Okay. Proteins are present almost everywhere. Nucleoproteins. Okay. So this is all about the proteins. Before closing the session, I would like to tell you about some very important proteins, and they are the part of examinations always, like collagen, trypsin, insulin, antibody receptors, GLUT4. So GLUT4, please remember, it is a glucose transfer protein which helps to enable the glucose transport into the cells. This GLUT4, please remember the name. Okay, this is for glucose transfer inside cells. The person suffering from diabetes mellitus type 2, they actually have the abnormal functioning of GLUT4. That is why the cells, they cannot open up the gateway channels so that the glucose can come inside the cell. So that will be all for today. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Stay safe. Stay happy.